Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Creator Spotlight. I am Stella, your host, and in this playlist, I am inviting amazing guests who transform their lives and are on a journey to help other people transform their lives too. Today, I have here with me an absolutely incredible person. She is an educational innovator, Julia Black. She's also a brilliant founder of Lights on Learning. She is a master neurocoach and a change maker. She is also on a mission to ignite the learning in 10 million homes, and I can't wait to hear all about that. Hi, Julia, and welcome to this interview.
Hi, Stella. Thank you very much for having me. Really good to be here.
It is truly a joy, and especially knowing your mission, which is something so close to my heart. I cannot wait for you to share with us the valuable information that you are here to share with the world. So I know that your this particular mission in your life started when your daughter came to you with a very strong message. Can you tell us what that strong message was that your daughter shared with you?
Yes, she was, well, it started really when she was 4 and went into school. But at age 9, she came, well, one morning when on the school run, she curled up in the dog basket with our dog Zola and looked up at me, and her face was grey. She had these bags under her eyes. And she just said, "Mum, you might as well send me to prison every day because that's what it feels like." And I kind of write about this in my book. It wasn't like she was being melodramatic or just, it was more the sort of the emotional tone or the lack of emotional tone with which she was saying it. And the fact that her light behind her eyes has really looked like it had gone out. So I phoned the school and said she's not coming back in. So it was really, as a mother who had been working with the school up to that point from when she was 4 until she was 9 to flex the education system every which way, in school, out of school, flexi schooling. I made that decision then to take her out and home educate. And actually, I went a step further and set up my own creative learning centre. So I then began to work with other home educated children, other children who were in school, and also went on to work with 15 local schools as well. So it kind of snowballed, really. But I like to think that my daughter, yeah, she sent that message to say, there has to be a different way, Mum. Let's go find out what it is.
Wow, and you were the absolute perfect person to receive this message because you were then able to do something with that information. So, what is your connection to learning or teaching in general? Why are you so passionate about this?
I think for me, I've always been a learner. I grew up in a family where the culture was very, very open towards, failing and making mistakes and never quitting, always being able to sort of, to go towards and have a very clear vision of where we were going to. And I think very early on, even I remember when I was about 9, asking my dad, like, why am I here? I remember having this very, very strong belief that I was here for something bigger than me that I didn't yet understand, but I wanted to find out and discover what that was. And I kind of went on this path, and I was a filmmaker for a while, and making documentaries about social issues. So using film as a tool for social change. But I really discovered why I was here and what I'm really good at when I was 40. And I'd been working very closely with my children's school, and we basically put on a circus. So I turned my sort of filmmaking director skills into directing the whole school, 106 children, to perform in this big top circus. We ended up performing to over 600 people, across 2 performances. And it was phenomenal. And what I realized, I remember sitting backstage of that circus, and I was wearing a pink wig and false eyelashes and this corset. And I remember just celebrating with the 2 other co-directors and just thinking, oh, this is why I'm here. I'm here to help people shine. I'm here to see the brilliance in others and create situations and create collaborative adventures so that ordinary people can come together to achieve something extraordinary. And that really then locked me into, well, how could it be that all of these children that I could see within the school absolutely rose to the challenge and shone, yet in the classroom they were switched off and disengaged and kind of being, some of them were being saying they were, had anger issues. And I think that for me was when it really began, is just like, I guess that creative energy, when we stir it, when we use it, when we find that thing that we were born to express and we use our natural born talents, we flourish. And that really locked me in to, I guess that was, gosh, that was probably 17 years ago, really locked me on this path of human flourishing and potential. And how do we create the internal learning environment so that we can be happy and fulfilled and flourish through choice, not circumstance? So I kind of fell into it as a mother, but equally in doing so, I discovered why I'm here.
And then it sounds like when your daughter came to me with that powerful message, it was just the perfect moment for you to also ignite your own like next step or mission that was so important, which I absolutely believe it is incredibly important because if you look at what happens in schools, I am so super grateful for the teachers because honestly, I don't know how they're doing everything. But at the same time, I think in the system, there is space for more creativity, or there is space for improvement when it comes to, hey, let's create this environment for children to explore who they are instead of putting a blueprint there and everybody needs to be the same because we bring so many unique, beautiful talents. And so thank you so much for sharing this journey because it sounds like everything really connected at the right moment for you.
Mm.
So would you say that when your daughter had that conversation with you, was that a moment that made you think, well, that is giving me an idea for something bigger, for lights on? Was
Mm.
that the moment? And what did you do from then?
Yes, I love that question. It was a moment where I guess I realized if I'm going to solve this for my daughter, then why can't I solve it for other children too? So I think because it wasn't just, her saying it one day, there was a lead up to her, and we solved the problems when she was 4, by flexi schooling, and then 7, we went on a family adventure. But then when it came back at 9, I had already kind of locked into the fact that there were millions of children around the world who are disengaged, disconnected from who they were born to be, who don't feel seen and heard within their school environment, and have really begun to hate learning. And for me, learning is as natural as breathing. If we don't learn and grow, I do not believe we can flourish as human beings. I feel it's like suffocating the oxygen, from our souls. And so that was really what it was. It was just like, well, I can solve this as a mother, and I did quite quickly, to be honest. But the change maker in me, the little girl that knew I was here for a reason, went, yes, this is my opportunity to now bring everything I know about being bold and resilient and failing over and over again. Because in the the entrepreneurial world, when we're following our quest, it's not like necessarily it can unfold with ease. And I think when you're on the right track, it does. But there's also challenges that come your way to strengthen you and so you can grow in order to take it to the next level. So that was really when I thought, well, yeah, I can not only solve this for my own family, but I want to also solve it for millions of other families too. And I think during the process of beginning to work in my creative learning center, where I saw thousands of children come through my doors for about 3 or 4 years that it was open, I began to actually realize the biggest difference that we can make is actually in the home. And that became very exciting because suddenly it wasn't necessarily about the narrative of a broken system or what can happen in the
Mm.
classroom. It was about how do our children become the children that walk into that system and are able to flourish anyway, not because the teacher is amazing, right? Because they're not all are, not because
Mm.
the curriculum is inspiring, because sometimes it is delivered in an uninspiring way, but because they are a lifelong learner, because they know how they learn, they understand how their brain works, and more importantly, they are curious, and that in itself is fostered back in the home. So what's exciting about that, I think, in my work and with the book now, is that actually we have this blueprint. I've looked at what worked and what didn't work, and I realized the big mistake that so many of us make as parents and educators is that we think it's something external that needs to change. And as you know, Stella, with your work and the passion that you have and your intuitive exploration through life, it's all about what's happening on the inside. And I think what's really exciting is that we can make the mistake that I think many parents and educators make, which is thinking that something external needs to change. It's something in the environment or the school or the workplace or but actually, when we understand that the biggest changes that can happen inside ourselves, then we become empowered to use our creative energy, to use our natural born gifts or superpowers, and the inner power to express ourselves, to be seen and to be heard, from within, is, I think, the complete game changer. And for me, that really does start within the home.
Mm. Oh, I love your message so much. And I can totally see why this is important because, like, your child comes back home and they share lots of different things that happened at school. And it's about how do you, as a parent, create that space for your child to feel safe, to talk about that, to not feel judged, without us as parents telling them, oh, why didn't you do that better or whatever, to listen, to really be good listeners. And I think that then for the parent, it's also an inside job as well to
Mm.
kind of find the balance between all all the tasks you need to do on a daily basis, all the things you need to do, and then to create that balance for your home and for your children. So I know that you are especially passionate about working with mothers.
Mm.
Why?
I believe mothers are here to change the world. I think we can really change and break free from the generational legacy of maybe mental ill health patterns and stories and narratives that have maybe kept us stuck, or our families stuck. And I believe that when we invest in ourselves as mothers, or when we invest in mothers, the whole family transforms. And this is what's become really exciting, is that as I began to work with mothers directly and really help them develop leadership skills, then the children transformed almost as a natural consequence of that. Because what I'm helping mothers do is learn how to be what I call lights on. So learn how to be resonating through joy and love and gratitude, through choice, not circumstance. But also, what's really, really exciting and important is it's also about learning to be lights off. So, to be much more in the darkness, to be in the shadows, to be with our fears or our anger or our frustrations, and use that to grow. So I talk about, when we are lights on, we are in creation mode, and when we are lights off, we're much more in reactive mode. But it's where the growth can happen. It's where we begin to see, well, where is our thinking limiting us, and how could I shift that? How could I rewire that so that actually that no longer is a limitation? And in the families that I work with, when the mothers really learn how to use their human technology, their heart, their mind and their bodies, to learn and grow and flourish, then what their children see are these formidable leaders who command respect and have an inner knowing. And as soon as we tune into our inner knowing, as you know, we're now acting with intuition, and things do begin to happen much more easily, with ease and flow. When we are so in our heads and we ignore what's in our hearts, we find resistance. And I think particularly what's difficult for parents and mothers, in particular the ones I work with, is seeing their children so disengaged. And that is really the shift. It's like when your child is in fear or lights off, you really want to double down on holding the resonance of joy and love and being like someone, because they don't want to see fear reflected back in your eyes. What they need to see is pure love, no matter how they're showing up.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I really love the even like the visual, because as you talk about lights on and lights off, I can actually visualize it. And both of these moments are important because we learn from everything, from every experience. We are souls in this human body. And as much as we want to be in the spiritual state, and just be connected with our higher self and our soul, we also are here to experience the human
Yeah.
experience, which is not always an easy one. But like I truly believe that as adults, when we choose to heal, to look within, to connect with who we are, to be curious, to ask the questions, to not take everything that comes in and say, yeah, that's true, especially with media nowadays and everything that we receive as information. I feel that when our children see that, they're like, okay, so mommy and daddy, they didn't just accept that, they questioned it, they looked deeper into it. So maybe that's what I can do as well. So I think this is such a powerful movement. It is really a powerful movement that you started. And thank you so much for that, Julia. So I know that you speak often about helping children become wired for learning. What does this mean? And why is it important?
Yes. So this is really about what I found and discovered by working with thousands of children over time, is that we all have this thing inside of us that switches on our lights. So again, using my semantics, and you see it in their eyes. It's like the lights have come on. And I called this their switch. And for me, it was that thing. Well, if we can get children, learning and playing and working within that switch. So it might be, for example, they're an engineer, or they're a maker, or a mathematician, or a performer, or my daughter is a wordsmith and my son is a digital wizard, for example. Both of which I discovered when they were around 6 or 7. And I believe this is what's innate in us. It's the switch really refers to the way we like to express ourselves when we are being creative and bringing something from our heart with our head, hands, and heart into physical manifestation, really tangible form. And I believe the heart always dreams bigger than the head is ready for. And this is where the wired for learning comes in. So once we've found the switch, and once we know how a child or an adult likes to express themselves when they're bringing something forth into the world, then now we've got vision, we've got passion, we've got purpose, we've got curiosity, so we've got creativity, we've got all of the energy to go beyond our edges. And that's when we need to get wired for learning, because it's like stepping outside of our comfort zone can feel uncomfortable, right? It's when we feel resistance. It's when frustration or anger will kick in. And I think, what I saw in a lot of children was that they weren't necessarily they weren't having the skills to be able to sit in that discomfort and keep going. So there's that retraction that happens when whoa, I don't know how to do this, and sort of a pulling back into the safety zone. And when we get a child working through their switch, they're much braver. So the heart will always dream bigger than the head is ready for. So the mind has to catch up. But we can be very intentional working with our children to get them to learn how to sit in that discomfort, which I think learning and growing brings with it. It's a natural, healthy part of learning. Learning is something I don't yet know how to do. So it's in the uncertain world. It's in the not knowing yet. And so, yeah, so that's what we began to do. We began to be very intentional with helping children understand that learning is the forming of neural networks, the firing and wiring together of neurons, so that gets faster and automated. And then the really clear example is, when toddlers are trying to learn to walk, they obviously have the vision of what they're wanting because they're seeing it everywhere around them, and they do not give up. They keep going, they keep falling down, they keep going, they keep falling down, they keep going until one day they take their first steps. And so when we were very open and explicit with children who are coming to my center, or within the families I now work with, through the online community, they were able to understand that if they wanted to truly express their potential and feel that sense of fulfillment, it actually happens post the struggle, not before it, right? Because there's something so rewarding of being able to achieve something that you couldn't do just a minute ago. And that's really what it is. It's about learning how your brain works. There's a lot of talk, obviously, about neurodiversity and neurotypical. And my feeling is it doesn't really matter how your brain is wired. All that matters is that you know how to make the most of it as the individual learner. So I talk about it's so important for our children to be in the driving seat of their learning, knowing how they think, how they feel, and how they behave when they're either in the lights on signatures of my lights on spectrum or outside the comfort zone and their lights go off momentarily. And it's a very, very empowering place to experience learning because it normalizes failure. It makes mistakes inevitable and actually a healthy part of learning. And it builds that resilience without needing to sort of do the push on through, grit it, with the grit and determination and that very masculine energy, but a much more sort of holding space for oneself to feel the whole range of emotions, like you say, because we're human, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And then, children, they look around, and of course, they only have at that point just a few years of life when we guided them to the best of our ability. So, in their, say, 7, 8, 9 years of
Mm.
life, up until that point, they don't know that the person who knows something, they've learned something, it took them years of
Mm.
practice to learn that thing. They just see that a person can do that thing. And so if they put this pressure on and they think, oh, I must become so good in one day, and then they can't do that, and then they take a step back, nothing like works, and it creates a bit of chaos. So I love what you said about really encouraging the children to be as in their driver's seat of their own like learning process, because in this way we are giving them the gift
Mm.
to understand how they learn, and this is going to help them for the rest of their life. How incredible is that? So in this process, when you help your child discover how their brain works and how they learn, would you encourage a reward system of some sort?
Personally, I think learning with the intrinsic reward of the post-struggle success is the biggest motivator there is. So for me, it's all about facilitating a child, whether that's you as the parent or even in the education system, to lock into the like, wow, look at what I can do. Yeah, the reward of creating. So say, for example, let's just take the wordsmith. So when my daughter was 6, she's now 21. So I've gone through the whole thing. But when
Mhm.
she was 6, I discovered her incredible innate talent for writing. And I was really excited. And so I facilitated that so she could also see, and how that looked was her sort of tiptoeing and dancing around as I typed up her story. But by working with your children in that way, you're understanding their gift. You're also facilitating it in a way because, again, it's not about making that better. It's about getting down what they're saying. And then about them being able to reflect. And it was such a beautiful process because she would come up and she said, like, can we change that bit? But she was free to create and I was sort of facilitating that. And for me, what that gives is it gives a tangible moment of creative expression,
Mhm.
which is just that moment in time. And then what we want to build in is the next one is growth. So one of the techniques that's used out there in the best education, in the best schools and educational models, is draft critique. So you begin to see this growth in a very, very tangible, visible way. And whenever we got a child to engage with draft critique, it was phenomenal because they would wow themselves. And I think that is the biggest reward. We know this as adults, like that sense of achievement that, wow, I didn't know if I could do that. And I kept going, and it turns out I can. Yeah. And
Mhm.
with that, is you naturally build again, bringing that resilience in, but also the strengthening of our human spirit in a way, because
Mhm.
it's like, it's like, okay, when we hold that vision of why we're here and what we want to do, we are prepared to fall down and get back up again. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
for me, um, it's it is intrinsic motivation is where I always start. And as soon as you get what lights a child up and they're learning through that way, actually you don't need any rewards, and you actually don't need to lead them, or you don't need to be hands-on at all. It's more about just kind of providing them, what they need when they need it, which is then when you get the self-led learner, which is, I guess, every parent's dream, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And so your movement, your project, your mission is such a powerful one. And I know that it is encouraging exponential growth, not only for children, but also for their families as well. Can you share an example from your experience of how your work has transformed somebody's life or family, or how they approached learning in general?
Yes, I'm going to Rachel is coming to my mind, so, and my heart, so I'm going to share Rachel's story. So Rachel joined me, well, it was probably about 3 years ago. And she she was home educating her three children, and she was really stuck creatively. She had been a science teacher. She was highly creative, but she wasn't expressing her creativity. And she was feeling very stuck about how she was, delivering the home ed, and it felt heavy, wading through treacle, and all of this. And the process that I do working with mothers is to begin to see, well, what's her switch? Where was her natural born genius and, being expressed? And as soon as she kind of started, I started working with her to kind of, she was an artist, she was a writer, she was a natural storyteller, but her real passion was also music. It just opened up, and it was almost like her creative energy just came out like this and really began to sort of shine out. And over the course of a year, she became braver, more courageous. Her husband started noticing that she was leading her family in a different way. She had moving away from being a micromanager and almost a servant of the family, like, oh, what is it, and oh God, in order to get them to do anything, I have to be really hands-on and make them do it. And she just evolved and grew into this most incredible leader, not only in her self leader, but within her family, but also within our community. And then one year she was like, she had leveled up so much, and we were talking, and what she landed on, she said, I'm going to, I really want to, music is my passion. And I said, well, how could you own being a musician? And so often we say we don't own it because we think it has to be big and loud and lots of, recognition from the external world. And I said, well, what would a musician do? Someone who really owned, I am a musician, what would they do? Well, they'd create music, right, all the time. And so she gave herself this brief to publish a song every month for a whole year, which she did. She published it on Spotify and all, and all the other channels available. And she composed and produced and published a song. And she showed up even when she didn't want to, every single month for a whole year. And she is in the most incredible place now. She even set up a business she'd been wanting to do with her daughter, 15-year-old daughter, that she'd been procrastinating on for 2 years. And what began to happen is as she stepped into abundance, as she stepped into creation mode, then she began to see the brilliance in her children too. And the more she started to lead from within herself, the more her family followed and sort of joined her there. And that's really the work of Lights on Learning. It's whole family transformation, but it does have to start with you as the adult. Yeah. And in particular, I work with the mothers because, as I say, when we invest in ourselves as mothers, we do lead our families to transform, as well. So
Mhm.
that's just, one of a handful of the transformations that I see happen. But I
Mhm.
call it the lights on effect, because when we as parents entrain, or we start resonating at higher levels of love, joy, gratitude, abundance and wonder, then the brain to brain synchrony kicks in and our children meet us there. And then the lesson really for us is like, well, how do we hold that lights on energy? How do we stay there when life gets in the way? And it's not that we don't want to go to lights off, because that's where the growth is, but how quickly can we recalibrate back to a groundedness, back to a sense of safety, back to a sense of creation, when we have perhaps momentarily shifted into fear, uncertainty, and become lights off. And that's really the work I do now with families, is to use my tool. I have a self-awareness and calibration tool called the Lights On Spectrum that has 6 different signatures: 3 lights off signatures, darkness, dimness, and glimmer, and 3 lights on ones, glow, brilliance, and radiance. And the beautiful thing that we've discovered as a community of mothers is that actually, when you learn to live life with your radiance, through radiance, and hold that really tight, then you can face any fear that comes along. You don't have to let go of the radiance and then get yourself back there. I guess you can sit in both of those at once. And that is what, for me, marks out a mother who has become a matriarch, who commands respect simply because of who she is being and not what she is doing. Because who she is being is based on what she believes to be true about herself, which is she loves herself, she knows her worth, and more importantly, she is here on the biggest adventure of her life, and she is fully expressing herself.
Mm. Wow, what a beautiful story you shared about your client, and then all these different nuances that you talked about regarding your program and what you're teaching the world. It is something that really has a big ripple effect. And then the way I see it is like, you create your work and it has ripple effect, and then your clients, when they succeed, they create a ripple effect with their work. And how fascinating this is, because we can see all of this negativity around, like really bad news and stuff like that, and we may think, well, when will this world change? Well, it always starts with, what can I do to contribute to the beauty of this world? And the more we create this ripple effect, the more beautiful the world becomes. And so, to everyone who's watching us, please check out the description of this video. And depending on when you're going to watch this video, make sure you're checking out what is it that Julia is working on at that moment. But now, Julia, would you like to tell us some of the things you're working on, so that people know how to connect with you and how to work with you as well?
Yes, the program that I'm kind of really excited about now is one that I did in 2020. I'm bringing it back, and it's called The Matriarch. And it really is looking for those mothers who know they're here to make a difference in the world, who are change maker spirits, who are tuning in some way, or want to tune into their creative energy. They want to use their gifts to, yes, exactly that, play their part in making the future safer for our children, for this next generation, but also want to do their bit within their family to equip their children to be able to look through that abundance lens, to tune into love. And so, yes, so the matriarch is really helping mothers to be able to create what I call a vision blueprint for what they want. And that vision blueprint is really looking at what they need to think and feel, and so that they can show up and lead their families in the way that they want to, but also recognizing the thoughts and the emotions and the pattern where they feel it in their body that might stop that happening. Because we know as mothers, there's challenges, every single day. But what I love about the matriarch is it is really all about the energy that we hold and that we entrain to, that, like you said, is going to make a difference for our future. And really, it does start within the home. And if we can activate our families to be able to counteract some of the big fear that is being, reflected at us through, in the world right now, then I do believe that we are probably doing what we came here to do, which is, yeah, shine our light and make play our part in safeguarding our future.
Absolutely. And then we also evolve as souls as well, because then, as we go through this lifetime, we experience so much growth and we don't have to wait for life to come and beat us in order to understand that, oh my God, I hit rock bottom and then now I need to find my way. Why do we have to wait those moments? Let's start exploring the inner world, even if it is uncomfortable, because of course we want, like our brain would want the comfort, and let's just stick to what we know. But if we know we want to evolve, we want to progress and to also create a beautiful, healthy life for our families as well. When I say healthy, mentally healthy,
Mm.
spiritually healthy, in all these different ways, then absolutely, I totally agree with you. It takes that decision, first of all, hey, you know what? Something
Mm.
needs to change. And then to fully embrace this journey, because it's not a journey that happens in one day. It's not. And actually, that's the exciting part about it, for me anyway. So,
Mm.
oh, thank you so much, Julia. And just one last thing. If there is someone who's watching this episode and they're thinking, well, you know what, as a parent, I actually feel a bit disconnected from this journey of learning and exploring. So I now understand after watching this episode that then my mood and my energy is influencing my child's energy. What would be one small step that these people can do today to help them just a little bit on this path?
I think the first thing is simply acknowledging that's what they feel, and then making the decision that they're going to use this disconnection or their own disengagement as for growth, and no longer see it as a problem, but really, really empower themselves to say, this is the moment I become more aware and I take ownership of what I want. And then just use the joy of tuning into, like, what is it you really want for yourself and your family, and take the moment to listen in and see what answers you get.
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for being an amazing guest. Thank you for your presence. To everyone who's watching us, please check out the description of this video. Connect with Julia. Check out her programs, her book, everything that she's working on. And I'm sending you all lots and lots of love. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like this video, and let us know your thoughts. And I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.